Dreamweaver Star Tracks. 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 Dreamweaver Star Tracks.
Welcome to Dreamweaver Star Tracks. And good to see you again. I'm glad you tuned in. And hosted by Grinzai and myself, Rinzai.
Hey, y'all.
And we have a person who's all about the time in the universe right about now.
Oh my God, dude drives a train.
This is KirkArthur.
The bus driver.
Yeah, and he is a drummer extraordinaire. And let me be clear for those of you who understand, well, I've seen drummers, what do they do? You got to know where one is, or everybody sounds like they're on a different planet. And this man has lived his whole life in quite a fascinating history and
Yes.
drums and stuff. And Corinne will start it off with a little information.
Well, we have a little information here because, okay, everybody, we got a contest for you. Chat in
Hold it
live.
still. Hold it still.
I'm doing this. Chat in live between 5 and 6, WCOBM.com, Las Vegas, and you will receive 2 free tickets to Bob Marley Tribute at the House of Blues, Las Vegas, Concert Hall with Lady Reiko and the Sin City Prophets, and 1 drop redemption. So, and you got to chat in drummer. If you can't spell it, it's cool because we'll know what you mean. So, 2 tickets.
All right.
Oh,
okay, all
it's
right.
always my turn. So Kirk and I have known one another a long time, and he is amazing. He has played with everybody from Chuck Berry, 15 years, Christine McVeigh, and Stevie Nicks, Robbie Patton, Air Supply.
Every oldies artist in the world.
Oldies artist in the world.
Al Shannon and everybody else.
And so we're going to talk to him about his journey and what an amazing, fun, incredible journey it has been. He's been a working drummer for 40 years. That's a long time. And he's still working constantly. So Kirk, first thing we like to ask is, when did you know that you wanted to do this? And when did you first get interested?
I don't know if I ever, I realized when I wanted to do it for a living, but when I first got into it, it was just a thing that happened when I was first grade.
6, y'all.
All the kids in our class, for some reason, they were making us do a music course, and they were teaching percussion or drums. So we all got a pair of drumsticks, and we sat on a floor in a circle and beat on a wooden floor, and they showed us quarter notes and eighth notes and stuff. I mean, we were only 6 years old, so there's only so much we can learn. And after that semester, I never touched sticks again until I was about 8 or 9 years old, and I came home and saw the garbage cans sitting out in front after the trash men had taken them.
Here we go.
And I thought, boy, they look like drums. So I got my sticks from the class from many years ago and put a chair out there and tilted all the garbage cans so that it was like drums. And out on our curb, sat and beat on them, and probably drove the neighbors nuts. And when my dad pulled in the driveway at 5:30 from work, he goes, "What are you doing?" So I'm playing drums, man. He goes, "Get in the house, will you? Take the cans with you." So that's when I kind of started realizing, I have an attraction to this. And it wasn't till 2 years later or so that he asked if I wanted to take drum lessons, and I said yeah, because my sister was playing piano, and he thought, well, you should do an instrument too.
So you started studying drums, because you can actually learn how to play drums. It's not just beating on something.
No, so like any instrument, it's something you have to practice at and learn from professionals.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I want to fast forward because I want to make sure we can get this in. You ended up you're from Detroit, and you played with all the great Detroit bands there.
Some of them.
Some of the great Detroit bands. Knew Bob Seger before Bob Seger was with Bob Seger and the Silver Bullets.
Oh, yeah.
That's so exciting for me. Turn the page, babe. Turn the page. And so then you went to New York City, and let's just talk a little bit about your journey there, because you were with a band, and the name of the band was.
Well, I was working with a bass player named Grant West, and we got in touch with a guitarist named Billy Davis. Billy Davis was a music director for Hank Ballard, and he was going to get his own record deal, and he wanted Grant and I to play bass and drums with him. So we went to New York to do that, and he had a manager that was taking care of trying to get his deal together. We went in the studio and recorded. We were living in Harlem, and I was probably the only white guy within 10 miles. We were 130th and St. Nicholas or some, just real deep in there. And Billy's deal fell through. It never did happen. And Grant and I decided to stay. And
But what happened, real quick, what happened when you went to the Apollo to play?
oh, we went to the Apollo. This is in '71. We were supposed to be the guest band that night, and we came backstage, and the guy that was the manager of the place came up and said, "Who are you guys?" "This is Billy Davis. This is Billy Davis and his band." And they looked at Grant. Grant West was black eye and part Indian too. They looked at Grant and Billy's and his manager Bunny Jones. And said, "Yeah, okay. Who's that guy with the?" And I don't know if you have the pictures. And I had really long hair.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
they're in the
You'll
museum.
see it in the
Really
next
long.
stakes, yeah.
And they said, "Well, you can all come in, but he ain't coming in here to play."
So
And
he
so
got
I
thrown out
couldn't
of the
go
Apollo.
in the Apollo because I was white.
Got thrown out of the
So-
Apollo. That's
Oh,
funny.
man.
And then the deal fell through. And what happened after that?
I ended up sleeping on park benches in New York City and Washington Square.
1971, right?
1971. I was 19 years old, and I knew Dave Palmer, who was the drummer in Ted Nugent and the Amboy Dukes.
Oh,
Ted
yeah.
Nugent.
Way back then.
He had quit the Amboy Dukes to work with Eddie Kramer at Hendrix's Electric Lady Studios. And so I went and visited him, and he said, "Where are you staying?" And I told him what had happened with Billy Davis, and he said, "Where are you staying?" I said, "I'm sleeping on park benches." He goes, "Well, you know, you got a suitcase. Why don't you, I'll give you the pass key to Electric Lady Studios. At least use this facility to come in and take a shower every day, and we'll try and help you out and get you a job or something." So I was leaving my stuff in a closet and walking around New York City trying to get work and sleeping on park benches in Washington Square. So
Wow.
But who did you meet that you ended up living in a penthouse?
ran into a guy. I kept going back to Electric Lady Studios every day to take a shower, and somebody said, "Who is that guy over there?" His name's KirkArthur. He's a drummer from Detroit, and he's looking for work. And he says, "Well, what's he doing?" He's sleeping in a park benches. He goes, "He can't do that, man." He introduced himself. His name was Bob Levine, and he was supposedly an executive producer with the Hendrix stuff, or involved with Electric Lady Studios. And he said, "Well, we can't have you living on a park bench." And he says, "Why don't you come and stay in my apartment with me?" I didn't know what that meant, but I thought anything's better than kicking bums off of a park bench. So I said, okay, and I went up, and right above Washington Square on 8th Street, he had a penthouse. And I stayed in his penthouse with him and his girlfriend for 6 months or so, and he gave me money and helped finance me and give me
Wow.
a job.
That
Wow.
is-
He saved my
Amazing.
life.
That is amazing. We have a question from the audience, and we're bringing in Miss Desiree.
Hello. So we have a question. This one's from pretty far away. So Tyler from Dijon, France. If I apologize if I'm jacking that up.
It's okay.
What genre of music do you like to play or prefer to play?
You know, I mean, I was into fusion when fusion came in. I loved Billy Cobham and Jack DeJohnette and Return to Forever and John McLaughlin and all that stuff. When I realized I couldn't make any money at it, that was after I moved to Los Angeles in '77, and I realized watching Jeff Porcaro and people like that play that probably the best thing for me to do is become what I call a commercial drummer. My love is for every type of music. I play Cajun, Celtic, country, rock, blues,
Wow.
rhythm and blues, dance, funk. I love it all. But my main goal has been in the last 15, 20 years of my life has been to be a commercial drummer and play what's supposed to be played and make money doing
And
That's
he's been working. Oh, I'm
a
sorry.
great decision.
it. Yeah.
So, do you hear that? Yeah.
40
The
years
fancy's
ago.
cool, jazz may be cool, but you want to make a living at this so you don't sell shoes. So
Exactly.
that is great advice. All right, we're going to be changing up here in just a few minutes. We're going to come back, and Corinne is going to delve into Kirk's life a little deeper there at that point in take 2. So we're looking forward to seeing you. So hang in there, enjoy what's coming up, and
Check it.
watch this next take. You'll see a little more about it.
Talk about Chuck Berry and Stevie
Yeah.
Nicks and Air Supply.
See you on the flip side.
everybody, how you doing? Welcome back to Dreamweaver Star Treks, and I'm Karen Zai, and here's our amazing guest, KirkArthur, good friend of ours and drummer extraordinaire. He's played with everybody from Chuck Berry to Air Supply to Stevie Nicks to Christy McVie to he'll tell you about it. We're going to talk more about that now. First, I want to tell you real quick, you can win some tickets to Bob Marley Tribute, June 18th, I believe it is, at the House of Blues, Las Vegas. Chat in drummer, WCOBM.com, Las Vegas, and you will get 2 free tickets, Lady Rako and the Sin City Prophets, and 1 drop redemption. Hang in there. Now we're going to talk to Mr. Kirk. So, Mr. KirkArthur, and for those of you that are watching that are Kirk's friends, chat in, say hi to him, ask questions. I'm looking at the chat right now. So, Kirk, you went from like starving to death on the streets to a penthouse, and then you went to L.A. And
Well, I went back to Detroit.
Went back to Detroit.
Spent a number of years there playing with Mike Quattro and a guy named Mutzi and a couple other bands. I moved to LA in 1977.
So, I mean, everybody's dying to know, how did you get to work with Chuck Berry? And working with Chuck Berry, let's say, what was he like? I want to know.
I have nothing bad to say about Chuck. I've seen him be nasty to people, like sound guys and lighting people, but we gave him what he wanted, and so there was no reason for him to ever get upset with us. I've always had good times with him and learned a lot about the business by doing business with him,
You were with him for 15 years.
15 years. We were his
That's a
West
long time.
Coast band, yeah.
That's a
West
long
Coast
time.
and out-of-country touring band.
Wow. And so for you guys that don't know who Chuck Berry is the godfather of rock and roll. He's one of the first rock bands.
Hendrix of the 50s.
That's right. And speaking of Hendrix, I'm going to guide the conversation there, because you had one person that was your biggest influence.
Yeah.
And who was that?
That was Mitch Mitchell, who played with Jimi Hendrix.
See? And there was a point in time, that little story real quick, that you met him.
We were doing Robbie Patton's album that Stevie Nicks and Christine McVie and Timothy Schmidt and Alex Acunda were all on as guests. And we were Robbie was having a pre-record release party. We still had 3 songs to do on the record at his house in Sherman Oaks. And Robbie was a very famous songwriter, co-wrote with Fleetwood Mac, wrote for Badfinger and a whole bunch of other, wrote a number of hits, an Englishman. And at this party, Stevie Nicks was there, and everybody that was involved in the business was at this party. And he came up to me and he said, "I've got somebody I know you're going to want to meet." And I said, "Yeah, really? Who's that?" And guy walks up behind him and he goes, "KirkArthur, I'd like you to meet Mitch Mitchell." And my jaw just dropped down to the ground. I said, "Oh my God, you're my mentor. I mean, you're the reason I got into this business because of Purple Haze." That song changed me all around, and I heard that and Sunshine of Your Love back to back on an AM station in 1966 or 67, whenever it came out. And that's when I decided, against my father's better judgment, that I wanted to play music for a living. So.
Wow, incredible.
But I got to sit and talk with Mitch for, 3-4 hours, and we talked about what it was like to be with Hendrix in the 60s, and Robbie asked him to be a guest on the album, and I begged him to please do it. And but he said, I just, I don't drum the way I used to like I did with Jimmy, and I've heard the pre-mixes of what's done so far on the album, and I can't compliment what you've done to it, which was one of the biggest compliments in my life.
So Mitch Mitchell, Jimi Hendrix drummer, who was your influence,
My
the
idol.
reason, your idol, who you became a drummer, said that he wasn't as good as you were. Hey,
Well, no, he was saying, I can't do better than what you've done.
what you've done.
And I
Still.
said, that's ridiculous. You've got to be on this record. And we tried to talk him into it, but he wouldn't do
That's
it.
incredible.
And I really wanted to have my name and Mitch's name on
Oh.
a record together. That
Heck
would have
yeah.
been incredible.
But now you have the story out there for our viewers, and so it's documented, people.
Yeah.
So we're going to segue. I have a zillion things to ask you, but we're going to segue to something that's very, very important. And I'm going to ask you, how important is health as a drummer? And we're segueing into something that happened to Kirk.
Well, you don't see fat drummers. Not too many. Well, the guy in Cheap Trick and the guy Frosty that was with Lee Michaels. But in general, you don't see fat drummers because it's such a physical instrument. And besides, when you're young, you're lifting that stuff up and hauling it around everywhere.
That's why you want to be a piccolo player.
That's when I started thinking I should have been. But I think drums keeps you in really good physical shape because you're moving every limb and item on your body when you're doing it.
So I've known Kirk for a long time, and he's had some real perilous things happening that happened to him. What happened when you had the problem?
1995, I was in a backing band, one of the first backing bands that backed artists, which is how I got into the oldies business, backing all these oldies artists. And we were opening a 2-week tour in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and on an intermission, I fell off what was a poorly constructed stage, went down about 20 feet to a concrete surface, and landed on my back, fractured my skull, and my empty trap case that was on wheels, when I went off the drum riser, the riser shook and the trap case shook, and while I was laying there unconscious, a 33-pound empty trap case came down and hit me in the head and bleeded both my brain lobes. They called my dad in Florida and said, he ain't going to make it through the night, you better get up here. But I did survive it, obviously.
He did survive and went on to become even more successful than he was before, and had a heart attack a few years ago.
2007.
And that's when we met.
I had a small...
Right before that?
Yeah, right before.
Yeah.
Well, it was right before
Right,
that.
like 2005, I think.
Had a small heart attack. They put a stent in. Didn't check my other arteries. They were plugged. Blew a hole in my heart 15 hours later. And fortunately, a master surgeon, obviously better than the first one, heart surgeon named Dr. David Holland. Holland? Yeah, Dr. David Holland. Saved my life, patched my hole in my heart, and I'm still here.
And he's still here drumming, y'all. Take care of your health and don't get on bad stages. Be careful. Well, here we have our beautiful, as she's walking, beautiful producer, Desiree. And she's got a question for Kirk.
Hello. So thank you all for chiming in. We have a question online that came in from Kent. Kent says, hi, Kurt. 19 Pints will be back at the Irish Fest in Iowa a week from Friday. Wish you were with us again. Thank you, Kent.
Hi, Kent.
For that.
Great band.
We also have another question from Josh, who's from, and again, I apologize for this terminology, Legazpi, Philippines. And he would like to know, have you performed internationally in places like the Philippines?
I haven't been to the Philippines, but like I said, we were Chuck Berry's West Coast, which is mostly west of the Rockies, and then all the stuff that was out of the country that he did. So I was in Brazil, Japan numerous times, Dubai, Poland, Russia. Dubai. It was amazing trip, man. It was right after the first Gulf War, and I was kind of paranoid about going over there. And the keyboardist that we took with us for that, Rick Olsky, he said, you don't realize you're going to go one of the richest countries in the world.
In the world. I have friends that have been over there performing,
Incredible
Including
over
you.
there. Yeah. And I got to party with the Sultan and his brothers after the show.
I heard he does do that. And he gave some of the people here in town Rolexes.
Oh, he didn't give me that.
Darn it. Well, you guys hang in there, because Kirk's going to be back with the amazing host and my cutie husband, Ren, and they're going to be talking about what it takes to be a drummer, because Kirk started on garbage cans. So we'll see you in just a few minutes. From garbage cans to Chuck Berry? Really? What? All right, hang in there. We'll see you in a few. Hey.
Dreamweaver Star Trek.
Oh, okay. Hey, we're back in here with you at Dreamweaver Star Tracks, and we're back with Mr. Kirk And one of the most important things in your life, I think you've already known, especially you youngsters out there, is timing. Show up at the wrong place at the wrong time, bad timing. Show up on a date at the wrong time, bad timing. So we're going to talk a little bit about timing. And for those of you during this section, I think that might be fun to be a drummer, or you find yourself just beating everything around the house, and your parents are going nuts. There is a potential your DNA is a drummer, and the louder they yell at you, there's more potential that you are a drummer. Till you talk them out of that first set.
Yeah.
So one of the things we're going to talk about here is, Kurt, the background, because it's one thing for everybody out there to see and hear about you and know that you've had this fabulous life. And intelligently, he picked a way to make this life work for him, so he got to do his art form his whole life. So a little bit about in the professional world, growing up, and things you need to learn about. And one of the things we're going to talk about for those of you who are musicians and going, well, the drummer, yeah, he's always kind of in the background. Let me be clear with you. Everything from a 4-piece band, which he's worked with, probably orchestras. I remember when I came back to this town, they had big band for a while again. If the drummer's not there, it might as well be 10 to 12 freight trains coming into a crash. It's pretty frightening. This is the man that tells you when and where to be. And that's really what it's about.
I drive you.
Yeah, and that's true. They're the driver. They're the bus driver. They tell you when we're going to move, shift, and go. And so for those of you who wonder who the guys in the back sitting there, they're the one that keep everything on time, on schedule, so that you can sing hopefully on pitch and in time yourself. So, Kurt, tell us a little bit about some of the things the drummers may want to understand, things they may want to know about the professional attitude, or the skepticism that may be told that, oh, you don't want to be a drummer, this or that. And you overcame all of that and said, the heck with that, and just drove straight forward anyway.
It was just determination. At a young age, I was determined to be in the music business against my father's good wishes, I just, a lot of it in the beginning is rehearsing and practicing and taking lessons and being able to learn how to read and everything else. And then after you get through your youth, probably one of the most important things for a drummer nowadays anyway, and what gets me more jobs than anything, is not my chops, but my timing, like we were talking about. Timing. If you've got a really good groove and your meter doesn't change or budge during a song, you're going to get more work. That's probably one of the most important things for a drummer.
The beats per minute and knowing that.
Well, just
wow.
just
that's
not
built in you. Wow.
Finding the groove, feeling the song. You have to feel the groove and feel the song and stay there. Don't budge. So you're the foundation of the band.
Right.
You're the one that holds the rock together. Everybody else is flying around the rock. So, it's important to do that. Other thing is your personality. You can be as good at timing or as good a drummer or any musician, any instrument, but if your personality is difficult, or if you're not a professional in your business transactions, or if you make mistakes like sleeping with the background singers or the showgirls, you'll get fired for that stuff, or you'll get a reputation where people don't want to use you because you're going to be a problem.
Yeah. And one thing is an example, something I had heard is before I started ever beginning to learn music, all of you had been so good at it, and Corinne was a musician before me. Then you hear there's the styles of music, like they say rock is slightly in front of the beat, then you kind of got R&B and blues slightly behind. So the audience, I've heard that term, I'm familiar with it, but for some of those who are wondering what that means if they want to be a rock drummer, what do they mean towards the front of the beat or on the beat?
I think it's not necessarily in front or behind, although rhythm and blues, funk, and dance music is more fatter of a groove than some rock and roll, depending on what it is. But I think rock and roll playing is you play more edgy. You're more edgier. I don't know what the word you're not excited, but energetic, an energetic edge.
Okay, so a lot more energy into that particular thing
Yeah.
than if you're a quiet guy in the background with brushes on jazz.
Well, yeah, and usually rock and roll is a larger volume, so
Yeah,
you do have to hit harder.
Yeah.
Which is another thing too, is like most of the drummers you'll find in bands are the people you can probably hang with. We can't get mad at anybody because we're beating the hell out of everything all the time. So there's no reason to get upset over. We're the most, in general, most drummers are friends with each other because we're laid back and we have no egos and we just want to play drums and we don't get mad because we take our aggressions out every time we play. Even if we're not
That's
mad,
positive.
we're just...
I like that. So you hear that, parents? You may want to get them a drum set.
Yeah, that'll calm your kid down.
So when you started, once you figured out, I want to do this, and your dad, the first thing you learned after beating on garbage cans is, right, now I got to move them. Did you go to school and start picking up, or how did you finally get deeper into the groove of music? What did you decide the next step was, and how did it progress?
Well, me and my closest friend that lived across the street from me, Pat Freer, we were both drummers. We took lessons from the same teacher, who was a child prodigy guy named Ron Leach, who had played on Lawrence Welk and other people. He was a couple years older than us. We all lived on the same street. And when he left, when I got into high school, he had one more year and he was graduating. So I became the first chair drummer in the symphony and the big band when he left, and for my last 2 years of high school. It was right after that that I moved into, when I got out of high school, I moved into a band house right away. When my parents moved to the suburbs, I moved into a band house and just committed myself to music. You know?
Wow. So when you said you were doing it for first chair, how many were in the orchestra at that time?
Well, the symphony was, I don't know, 40, 50 people.
Yeah, and there it is, folks. 40 or 50 people coming together have to know right where they are. And
well, I have to
there's
read.
the guy that sits at the very center of the game.
Well, that was a little different. I mean, I was just playing snare drum. Basically, when you're a first chair drummer, you're the snare drummer.
Oh, okay.
And drumming on a drum set was when I learned by being in the big band, doing Johnny Carson's theme and all the Glenn Miller stuff. Our band director, I think his name was Mr. Aptekar. That was my first experiences behind a drum set, playing, you know, not playing with a band, but playing that kind of music and wide variety of music influence. So.
A lot of that. That's amazing stuff going on. We're coming in right now. We've got some questions coming in for you. Miss Desiree coming over. Let's see what we got.
Hello. So we have a question from a friend of Kurt's, actually. He's going by the name GeForce 2001. It says, Kurt, talk about how much you practice to get proficient on the kit and able to get hired. The reason I ask is because I lived across the street from you on Braille Street in Detroit, and would hear you practice a lot. So talk to the kids about practicing.
Yeah, Gary Bubash knows about that. He lived next to Pat Freer. I lived across the street from Pat Freer. So the two drummers on the block, besides our teacher, lived pretty much right next to Gary. So, I think Pat will agree with me and any other person is we devoted our lives to learning how to play drums. As soon as we started taking lessons, we practiced every single day and on weekends, and I'm sure we drove the neighbors nuts, and I know that my mother and father probably had a little bit of irritation from me pounding on the drums in the basement. I'd get done and Pat would be playing upstairs in his room across the street, so it was a whole drum street.
Oh, that's pretty bizarre. That's kind of closing up on that. That is impressive. Wow, very cool. So that many drummers on one street? Yeah,
I know. 3 of us.
I'm just surprised you didn't have the cops come along.
Because our parents made sure that we didn't do anything wrong.
Oh, gosh.
You won't play after 6 o'clock.
Okay. Well, we're going to come back. So, and any more questions we have, we're going to come back and chat with you in a few moments, folks. So get those questions in there. And don't forget, text in for those who want the tickets to Lady Reiko. And we'll have some fun on that under the reggae system, which is kind of its own unique form of beats and stuff. So we'll be talking to you in a few moments. I will catch you on the flip side.
Dreamweaver Star Tracks. Dreamweaver Star Tracks. Dreamweaver Star Treks. Dreamweaver Star Treks. Dreamweaver Star Treks. Dreamweaver Star Treks. Dreamweaver Star Treks.
Hey, Star Trekkers, your turn. We got your questions coming in, and we are going to kick off.
But wait a minute.
What?
I got something to say.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, you
My
guys.
timing's
You guys
wrong.
living in Vegas, we're giving away free tickets to Bob Marley tribute at the Las Vegas House of Blues, Lady Reiko and the Sin City Prophets, and One
well
Drop
worth watching.
Redemption, June 18th. Chat in drummer or text 702-324-6065. You'll get 2 free tickets to the show.
It's
We
going
will
to be a cool
there.
show, and it's very uplifting music. Love
Yes.
it.
Awesome.
So,
Now it's all about Kirk.
Miss Dan.
Yes.
Yes.
So we have a question that just came in from Dendon
Dendon.
for Kurt.
I know who that is.
It says, Kurt, talk about
Hey,
the
Dendon.
Keith Moon influence in destroying your kit.
Well, that Dendon is Pat Freer, the other drummer that I told you about, lived across the street from me. And
Cool video, by the way.
yeah, we formed a drum language back in 69, 68, 70 when we were kids, trying to sound off how drums sounded on records. What was that chop like? Oh, it sounded like this. And many years later, thanks to the help of 2 of our old friends, Mark and Bill Manley, and my attorney, who's one of my best friends, Al Landiger, who financed it, we got Pat out here to Las Vegas, and we did our talking drum video. I don't know if you showed it or not, but anyway, it's pretty funny. But that's who Dendon is. And he's right. I saw my first concert that I went to was The Who at Southfield High School in Detroit.
Nice.
And the opening act was Ted Nugent and the Amboy Dukes. And I saw Keith Moon knock his drum set over, and I just went, wow, that's so cool. And so the next
What a
gig,
dude.
He could afford it.
yeah, he could
Dude,
afford it exactly.
knock
Or even
stuff
then.
Yeah.
But so the next gig I did with the second band that I played with, Pat and his brother Mark were at the show that we did, and I decided at the end of the show to knock my drum set over. And at the time, the one tom-tom on this side was on a stand. Both toms were on stands; they weren't hooked to the bass drum. And I pushed that thing over, and his brother was standing at the front of the stage, and that thing went like this and hit him right in the head.
Didn't quite go so well.
I'm sure that's what Pat's talking about.
Hey,
And that was the last time I did that. Sorry, Mark.
An apology 40 years later.
Yeah.
What do we got next, Miss Dan?
All right, first of all, I want to say thank you to everybody for chiming in. It's
Thanks,
always
guys.
appreciated.
Yeah, thank you.
Especially for Kurt. I think that's fantastic. Thanks, everyone. We have another message from Eden, who's from Byron, Mississippi.
Eden.
And the question is, what did you have to do to get noticed as a drummer?
Part of the business and being employed in it, or trying to consistently be employed in it,
That's a trick.
is going out and socializing. Being in the right city is important. In my case, Detroit at the time was good. When I left Detroit in '77 and moved to LA was a hot spot to be. And I believe after I moved out of there in 2006 and moved here, this is also the entertainment capital of the world.
Yeah. Las Vegas,
So when you're in the right city like Nashville, New York, London, whatever, it's real important to go out and socialize. I go see bands play all throughout the week on any days off, nights off I have. I go to the certain jams and sit in. I sit in with friends that are playing for the night. And even if you don't sit in, just going and showing up, you're in their front mind of their thought. If the next day they need a drummer, they're going to go, oh, I saw Kirk last night.
There you go.
I think I'll call him up.
Good thinking.
yeah.
Yeah.
And he keeps working. Kirk keeps working.
And that and emailing, letting people know where you're at so they can come and see you play, and constant phone conversations. Even if I don't have anything to talk to about a certain musician, I'll call them up, just say, who you been playing with, what have you been doing, and we'll converse back and forth so everybody, it gets passed around within the business of whatever city you're in with all the musicians, and especially a small community like this. compared to L.A.
Yeah.
You know, word gets around real fast.
That's how you met Diane, right?
I met Diane through you.
We were at a jam. Diane Kelly, great friend of ours, great female blues singer. I mean, Kirk's still playing with her.
Still doing.
And she said, I need a drummer. I said, stand right there. And I went and got Kirk.
And I was there that day when, I mean, all three of us were in the same venue when that conversation happened. So
That's right.
And so I think it boils down to one simple thing. If they can't remember your name or they don't know you, you're not going to get work.
Thank you.
So get your name out there, get your face out there.
Go hang. Even if
hang.
you're not working, go out and don't sit at home and watch A&E channel. Go out and see people and let them know that you're there. After I had that brain injury, I had a friend come up to me and say, we were playing at a club in Reseda, and he came up to me 3 years later. He goes, God, I heard that you died.
Oh, wow.
I went, died?
What
are people saying? So that, and even more important, for you to go out and let people know you are okay.
And that you're alive.
Yeah, that you survived it or whatever. But that's just an example of, you know, you want to make sure that everybody sees your face, knows that you're around, that you're available, you're happening.
And that's good because, you know, we had The Walking Dead. Well, basically
right.
at that point, that guy realized he had the drumming dead.
People, KirkArthur is alive and
I'm alive.
playing. Call him.
All right,
God.
we have another question that just came in online from Nick. Nick wants to know, are you a fan of the double drag paradiddle rattan mufflon?
That's an esoteric drum thing. What is
Okay,
that?
I got no idea.
It must be, well, as part of it is a rudiment, I know that. Double drag paradiddle. I mean, I learned all that stuff when I was, you know, taught. My style that I developed, I think that it was probably realizing that the more pronounced that I am about my playing, the cleaner my playing is, the more I'm going to get noticed. So most of my stuff, Nick, is I do all my rolls are single stroke rolls because they're powerful. You know, I rudiments to me is more for jazz and fusion kind of playing. I don't really incorporate it that much anymore. I mean, I do, but not as much as I used to when I was playing big band and stuff like that when I was younger. So.
Cool.
Yeah, that would
I
make
thought
more
I knew
sense.
about music, but I've never heard about a double
That was a new one.
paradiddle.
That's a drummer.
rattan mufflon.
That's all drummer stuff.
That's drummer stuff.
I'm not sure about the rattan ma flam, but a double
That's
drag
cool.
paradiddle, yes.
Sounds like a
We'll be
dessert.
talking about it.
But
A disease.
Thank you, Nick,
Thanks,
for
Nick. That's a cool
chiming
question.
in. Absolutely.
thank you.
He must be a drummer.
Yeah, with a language like that.
All right, so we have a question from Kellen, who's from Cincinnati. And he says, as a new drummer to the industry, I've heard the term pocket drummer.
Mm-hmm.
Can you please explain what this means?
That's so cool. I was going to bring it up.
Probably one of the best examples and most popular examples of pocket drumming is listen to anything that Jeff Porcaro played on. You know, it's funny. People on the East Coast have a tendency to play on top of things. People in the Midwest, where I grew up, are somewhere in the middle. People in L.A., when I moved to Los Angeles, everything was real fat, and Jeff Porcaro was a heavy influence to
And
Los
who did he
Angeles
play with?
drum. Toto.
Thank
Besides every other album, I mean, he worked with every artist in the world. He's on zillions of albums.
And when you say like on top or not quite that, what do you mean for the
Well,
audience
if
out
the
there?
meter is right here, you can be on top of it and not leave the meter. It'll just put an edge to it. Or you can get on the back side of it, and it puts a fat groove to it, which is what he was talking about, is a pocket groove. Pocket groove is considered on the back side. And like I said, any of the Toto albums or anything Jeff Porcaro played on, Steely Dan, all that stuff, you can tell it's just that's a groove. That's a certain type of groove, and it's a laid back. I call it the West Coast groove because most drummers on the West Coast play that style. We're forced to because that's the business. out there.
Wow. I have to say, okay, Mike Rogers, pocket. All right, Mike Rogers is John Lee Hooker Jr.'s drummer, a very good friend of ours, and I would love to get them together talking about it.
Oh, God, that would be fun.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
I want to
Just
record
saying.
that.
I'm gonna call you tomorrow.
They'll be
Mike.
in town, actually.
Yeah.
All right, so
Next week.
we did have one last really quick question that if we can get it really fast. So Cole just wanted to know, is drumming a talent you're born with, or can anyone learn to become a professional drummer? Just really quickly.
I'm not God. I don't know.
I have never seen a newborn with a set of drumsticks. That's all I know.
You know, I mean, there's obviously people like Buddy Rich, and in their early days, there's people that are born to play drums. Some of us know it, some of us don't know it, but it doesn't mean that you can't play drums. If you're devoted to any instrument and you have an interest in it, if you're taught properly and take the proper lessons and listen to the older guys that have experience, and I'm not counting myself in on that category.
He's a youngster,
but,
that's
why.
why.
But, you know, if there's a guitarist in town here, a young guy named Trevor. He's like in his late 20s, early 30s. He plays with all the old blues guys. He goes to the Blues Society. You know Trevor.
Yeah, I know Trevor.
And that was the smartest thing he could do because he's learning from all the experienced guys
He's
right
working.
on hand. He's playing with them. He's
He's working.
jamming with them. And he's working because he's getting a big fat education that all of us had to
free.
learn,
And I
that
hate
we
to
had
do
to
this.
learn over years.
We're going to have
So,
to roll.
just
Who do we
really
have
quick,
coming in next
yes.
week,
Kirk, we
Fran?
love you. Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
Erica Van Lee, singer, dancer, songwriter, actor. You've seen her on all the shows on the Strip. She was on Mind Freak. I'm not supposed to say that, but I got to say it. Amazing Jonathan. She's an aerialist. She's gorgeous. Next week, be there. Thank you, KirkArthur.
Thank
you.
you so
Thank you.
kindly. And thank you
Thank
all.
you, everybody.
We'll see. Take care of yourselves till next
care.
time.
Bye-bye.
Aloha.
Dreamweaver Star Trek.